The corner office on the 42nd floor of Bradford Industries still had my father's name on the door, Alexander Bradford Sr., founder and CEO. Inside, my mother sat behind his massive mahogany desk surrounded by the trappings of family power she'd inherited when he died 6 months ago. I stood in the doorway, watching as she reviewed documents with our family lawyer Martin Wells. Neither had noticed me yet. They never did. To them I was just Alex Jr., the disappointment, the second son who'd never quite measured up to their expectations. "The changes to the will are all in order?" my mother asked, her voice carrying that familiar tone of cold efficiency. "Yes, Mrs. Bradford," Wells replied. "Once signed, the new arrangement will leave 80% of the estate to Thomas, 15% to Victoria, and the remaining 5% to various charities. And Alex Jr., completely removed as requested." I smiled slightly, checking my watch. In exactly 17 minutes, the final transfer would complete. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. "He doesn't deserve a penny," my mother declared, reaching for the pen. 6 months since his father's death. And what has he done? Nothing but work in that insignificant analytics department, crunching numbers like a common employee. If only she knew what those numbers had revealed. I stepped into the office, making my presence known. "Good morning, Mother, Mr. Wells." They startled slightly, my mother's hand tightening on the pen. "Alex, this is a private meeting. About my disinheritance." "Hardly private, considering Victoria's already told half of Boston's social circle." Wells shifted uncomfortably. My sister had indeed been indiscreet, celebrating my impending removal from the family fortune at several charity events. "You've given us no choice," my mother said firmly. "Your father built this company from nothing. Thomas has proven himself worthy of carrying on that legacy. You've proven nothing." I checked my phone discreetly. 12 minutes. "Actually, Mother, I've proven quite a lot. You just never bothered to look. Your little job in analytics hardly counts." "As I wasn't talking about my job in analytics," I interrupted smoothly. "Though that position has been illuminating." Wells cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should focus on the matter at hand. Mrs. Bradford, if you'll just sign here." "You might want to wait on that signature, Mother," I said, taking a seat across from her. "There are some things you should know first." She set down the pen with obvious irritation. "What things?" "Did you ever wonder why Father insisted I take that position in analytics 3 years ago? Why he specifically wanted me reviewing acquisition records and property holdings? He was trying to teach you basic business sense," she snapped. "Fat lot of good it did." 8 minutes. Actually, he was showing me where to look. What to investigate. You see, Father knew something wasn't right with the company finances. He just couldn't prove it. My mother's face remained impassive, but I caught the slight twitch in her left eye. Her tell when she was worried. "Thomas has run this company brilliantly since your father's death," she said. "Our stock value has never been higher." "Yes, artificial inflation tends to have that effect." Wells sat up straighter. "What exactly are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Would you like to hear them?" 5 minutes. I opened my laptop, turning it to face them. 3 years of systematic fraud. Shell companies created to hide losses. Property assets sold and repurchased through dummy corporations to inflate value. And the masterpiece, a complex web of offshore accounts moving money through no less than 12 countries. "Ridiculous," my mother scoffed, but her voice had lost some of its certainty. "The SEC doesn't think it's ridiculous. They've had these records for the past month, courtesy of an anonymous whistleblower." Wells went pale. "Mrs. Bradford, perhaps we should—" "Let me finish," I continued calmly. "You see, Father suspected Thomas was cooking the books. That's why he put me in analytics. Not as punishment, but as his inside investigator. What he didn't live to discover was that Thomas wasn't working alone." 2 minutes. My mother's facade cracked slightly. "What are you talking about?" "The offshore accounts, Mother. Did you really think no one would notice your name on them?"
Or Victoria's.
"The whole family conspiracy to drain the company's real assets while presenting a false front to shareholders. You can't prove any of this." I smiled. "I already have. But that's not even the best part." 1 minute. "The best part is what I did with the information." While you were all busy moving money through your elaborate scheme, I was moving things too. Real things, like property deeds, corporate ownership documents, building titles. My phone buzzed. Right on time. In fact, I continued, as of exactly now, Phoenix Holdings has completed its acquisition of this building, along with 60% of Bradford Industries' real estate assets. Phoenix Holdings. Wells frowned. But that's my company, I finished for him. Created 3 years ago when I started unraveling your scheme. Every property you sold to your fake companies, I bought them through Phoenix. Every real estate deal Thomas used to hide losses, Phoenix was the actual buyer. My mother stood abruptly. You're lying. Check your email, Mr. Wells. The complete ownership transfer documents should be there now, along with copies of everything I sent to the SEC. The lawyer fumbled for his phone, face growing paler as he read. This building, I continued, enjoying the moment, is now legally mine, as are most of the company's legitimate assets, which means the artificial stock value you've created is about to come crashing down, taking your entire house of cards with it. You would destroy your own family's company. My mother whispered, No, mother, I'm saving it. The SEC investigation will focus on the individuals involved. You, Thomas, Victoria. The company itself will survive under new management. My management. I'll fight this, she declared. But the tremor in her voice betrayed her. With what evidence? The records showing your fraud, the offshore accounts in your name, or perhaps the video recordings of your meetings with Thomas where you planned the whole thing. Wells stood shakily. Mrs. Bradford, as your lawyer, I strongly advise you not to say anything further. Actually, I corrected. As of 10 minutes ago, you're no longer her lawyer. Phoenix Holdings has retained your firm's services, and your partners have already agreed to cooperate fully with the investigation. The office fell silent, except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Boston's financial district sparkled in the morning sun, unaware that one of its oldest family dynasties was imploding. Why? My mother finally asked. Why not just turn us in? Why go to all this trouble? Because father asked me to save the company, not destroy it. His last words to me weren't about disappointment or inheritance. They were about protection. Protect what I built, he said. Not from outsiders. From them. Her face crumpled as the truth hit her. He knew. He suspected. That's why he positioned me where I could find proof. He knew everyone underestimated me. Ignored me. The perfect inside man. My phone buzzed again. A text from security. Sir, federal agents are in the lobby. Right on schedule. I murmured. Mother, Mr. Wells, I believe some gentleman from the SEC would like to speak with you. Don't worry about Thomas and Victoria. They're being picked up as we speak. You're no son of mine. She spat. But the words held no power anymore. No. I agreed quietly. I'm my father's son. The one who actually understood what legacy means. As security escorted them out, I walked to the windows, looking out over the city. 3 years of careful planning, of being overlooked and underestimated, had led to this moment. The company would survive, stripped of corruption and rebuilt on solid foundation. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from an encrypted number. Well done, son. He would have been proud. I smiled, recognizing the signature. The private investigator father had introduced me to 3 years ago, who'd helped set this all in motion. The nameplate on the door still read Alexander Bradford Sr. I'd leave it there but add something below it. Alexander Bradford Jr., CEO, protecting the legacy. After all, that's what father had really wanted. Not an empire built on fraud, but a company worthy of the name he'd given it. And me? I was no longer the overlooked second son. I was the one who'd been watching all along. Security buzzed again. Sir, the FBI would like to speak with you about the evidence. Send them up, I replied. And Thomas, have maintenance start changing the locks. All of them. Yes, Mr. Bradford. I sat behind what was now my desk, opening the files I'd prepared for the federal investigators. Everything documented. Everything proven. Everything leading to this moment. In the outer office, I could hear my mother's voice rising as she was led away, protesting her innocence. Thomas would be yelling too, wherever they'd found him. Victoria was probably already calling her society friends, trying to spin the story, but none of it mattered now. The truth was in the numbers, in the documents, in the trail they'd left, thinking no one was watching. The overlooked son in analytics. The family disappointment had seen everything. And now finally they saw me. The FBI agents entered. Suits crisp, badges displayed. Mr. Bradford, we have some questions about the evidence you provided. I gestured to the chairs in front of my desk. Of course, I've been preparing for this conversation for 3 years. As I began walking them through the documentation, I caught my reflection in the window, wearing the same simple suit I'd worn in analytics, but sitting in a very different chair. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it's just quietly buying the building while they plot your downfall. And sometimes being underestimated is the greatest advantage of all. 2 weeks after the arrests, I sat in my father's now my office, reviewing the fallout. The media had been relentless. Bradford family scandal rocks Boston. SEC uncovers massive fraud scheme. Bradford Industries, a legacy of lies. But today's headline was different. Bradford Industries rises. New CEO stabilizes company. Amid family crisis, a knock at my door interrupted my reading. Come in. Sarah Chen, my newly appointed chief financial officer, entered with a stack of reports. I'd promoted her from analytics immediately after taking control. She'd been one of the few who'd noticed the discrepancies in Thomas's books, but had been silenced by management. The preliminary audit is complete, she said, placing the files on my desk. You were right about the extent of the damage. I opened the top file. How bad? Nearly $300 million in fraudulent transactions over 3 years. But she smiled slightly. Your counter-acquisitions through Phoenix Holdings preserved about $800 million in real assets. The company's survival is secure. And the employees' pensions? Safe. Your father's original trust structure protected them, even if Thomas and your mother didn't know it. I nodded, remembering father's insistence on that particular legal framework. He'd been planning this longer than any of us realized. Another knock. Daniel Wells, Martin Wells' son, and our new legal counsel entered, looking concerned. Your mother's attorneys have filed a motion, he said without preamble. They're challenging your takeover of the building. I smiled slightly. On what grounds? They claim the Phoenix Holdings purchases were made with insider information. Information about their own fraud. I raised an eyebrow. Bold strategy. It gets better. Daniel continued. Thomas is claiming you manipulated company records to frame him. I opened my laptop, turning it to face them. You mean these records? The screen showed a video recording. Thomas in this very office, instructing his assistants on how to create the fake corporation. The timestamp was from 2 years ago. There are hundreds of hours like this, I said quietly. Every meeting, every transaction, every conspiracy. Father had this office wired long before he died. Sarah whistled softly. He really did plan everything. Not everything, I corrected. He didn't plan to die before seeing it through. That part fell to me. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. The first contact from any family member since the arrests. Need to talk. Urgent. I showed the message to Daniel. Your thoughts? Legally, you don't have to meet with her. The restraining orders are still in effect. But she's the only one not directly implicated in the fraud. Might be worth hearing what she has to say. I considered this. Victoria had benefited from the scheme, but hadn't actively participated in it. Maybe there was something salvageable there. Set it up, I decided. Neutral location. Full security. Recorded. After they left, I walked to the windows, looking out at the city as I had so many times in the past 2 weeks. The Bradford Industries sign still dominated the skyline, but it meant something different now. My phone buzzed again. This time an email from the board of directors. They'd been surprisingly supportive once I'd shown them the full evidence of what I'd prevented. The company's stock had taken a hit when the fraud was revealed, but my immediate transparency and the strength of the remaining assets had prevented a complete collapse. The meeting with Victoria was arranged for that afternoon at our lawyer's offices. She arrived looking less polished than usual, the strain of recent events evident on her face. "Alex," she said softly as she entered the conference room. "You look different. Amazing what coming out of the shadows can do." I replied. "Why did you want to see me?" She sat down, hands clasped tightly. "I need to know, did father say anything about me?" At the end, I studied her carefully. "Why? Because he tried to warn me," she whispered. "3 months before he died, he called me to his office, said I needed to be careful about the company accounts I was involved with. I didn't listen." "But you didn't actively participate either." "No, I just took the money." Looked the other way. She met my eyes. "That makes me just as guilty, doesn't it?" "Legally, no. Morally, that's something you'll have to figure out for yourself." She nodded slowly. "Mother's lawyers think they can overturn everything. Thomas is convinced he can prove it was all your manipulation." "And what do you think?" "I think," she paused, "I think father knew exactly what he was doing when he put you in analytics. The quiet one, the watcher, the one nobody suspected." I allowed myself a small smile. "It wasn't all father's plan. You know, I made my own choices. Like buying the building. Like buying everything they thought they were cleverly hiding. Every fake company they created became a real one, owned by me through Phoenix Holdings." Victoria shook her head in amazement. "All those years we thought you were just existing in that analytics department. No ambition. No drive. Sometimes the best place to hide is in plain sight." She stood up, smoothing her skirt nervously. "What happens now?" "To the company, it survives. Rebuilt on honest foundation. To mother and Thomas, that's up to the federal prosecutors. To you?" I paused. "That depends on you." "What do you mean?" I pulled out a folder I'd prepared. "A choice. Sign over your remaining shares to the Employee Trust Fund. Agree to cooperate fully with investigators. And walk away clean. Or align yourself with mother's legal challenge and take your chances." She took the folder with trembling hands. "Why offer me a way out?" "Because father asked me to protect the company from them. Not necessarily from you. You chose to be willfully blind. Victoria, they chose to be actively corrupt. There's a difference." After she left, having signed the papers, I returned to the office. Sarah was waiting with more reports, but her expression told me these were different. "We found something in the archived records," she said, "from just before your father's death." She handed me a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. On the front, in my father's handwriting, "For Alex Jr. When it's done." Inside was a single sheet of paper, dated 3 days before his death. "Son, if you're reading this, you've done what I couldn't. Saved the company from those who would destroy it from within. I'm sorry for the burden I placed on you. For the years of pretense you had to maintain. The hardest part of watching corruption take root is knowing you can't fight it openly. You have to become the invisible hand, the quiet observer, the patient hunter. You were always the right choice for this. Not because you were less than Thomas, but because you were more observant, more patient, more principled. I put you in analytics, not as a punishment, but as preparation. The company is yours now. Earned through wisdom rather than given through birth. Build something better than I did. Watch more carefully than I did. And remember, sometimes the greatest power lies in being underestimated." "Dad." I folded the letter carefully, placing it in my desk drawer. Outside, the sun was setting over Boston, casting long shadows across the financial district. My phone buzzed one last time. A news alert. Bradford Industries announces major restructuring. Employee ownership program launched. I smiled. Something better indeed. 3 months after Victoria's choice, I stood in the Bradford Industries auditorium, facing over 500 employees. The company-wide meeting had been announced a week ago, but no one except Sarah and Daniel knew its true purpose. For 60 years, I began. Bradford Industries has been defined by its family name. Today that changes. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The employee ownership program isn't just about shares or profits. It's about fundamentally transforming how this company operates. Starting today, Bradford Industries becomes Bradford Employee Holdings. The murmur turned into outright discussion. I let it continue for a moment before raising my hand for silence. Every employee will receive a stake proportional to their years of service. The Bradford Family Trust, which I now solely control, will retain 30% ownership. The rest belongs to you. In the front row, I saw tears in the eyes of Margaret Wilson, our longest-serving employee. She'd been here 40 years, watching the corruption grow but powerless to stop it. Now she'd be one of the largest employee shareholders. But there's more, I continued. We're establishing an employee board of directors. 7 seats. 4 elected by you, 3 appointed by management. Real power, real voice, real change. Sarah stepped forward with the formal announcements, explaining the technical details. I watched the faces in the crowd. Shock, joy, disbelief. They'd expected more corporate politics, more family drama. Instead, they were getting their company back. After the meeting, I returned to my office to find an unexpected visitor. James Patterson, my father's oldest friend and chairman of Boston First Bank. Bold move, Alex, he said, standing at the windows. Very bold, but your mother's lawyers are calling it corporate suicide. They're approaching major shareholders, trying to build support for a challenge. I smiled slightly. What shareholders would those be? Phoenix Holdings owns 60%. The employee trust now owns 10%, and I personally control 30%. They're fighting a battle that's already lost. They don't know that yet. He turned to face me. Thomas made bail this morning. That was news. Source of funds, unknown. But he's been making calls, trying to rally old business contacts. I sat down at my desk, opening my laptop. Show me. James handed me a flash drive. Your father asked me to keep an eye on certain accounts. Thomas has been busy, or trying to be. The drive contained transaction attempts from various hidden accounts. All blocked, all traced, all documented. He still doesn't understand, I mused. Even now he thinks money is power. And what is power in your view? I gestured to the auditorium below, still filled with excited employees discussing their new stakes. Information. Patience, trust. My phone buzzed. I text from Daniel. Thomas just tried to enter the building. Speaking of trust, I said, showing James the message. Want to watch how real power works? Security cameras showed Thomas in the lobby, arguing with guards. I pressed the intercom. Main desk. This is Mr. Bradford. Sir, your brother is demanding entry. Claims he's still CEO. Put him on speaker. Thomas's voice filled the lobby. This is ridiculous. I built this company. No. Thomas, I interrupted calmly. You nearly destroyed it, and now you're trespassing. You can't do this, Alex. I'm calling the board. Which board? The employee board that now controls the company, or the federal board investigating your fraud? Silence. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to leave. Now, before I add attempted corporate espionage to your charges. You're not going to get away with this, he snarled. But he was already backing toward the door. I already have. Goodbye, Thomas. After he left, James chuckled softly. You remind me of your father more than Thomas ever did. He understood real power too. He understood a lot of things. I agreed, including the fact that a company is more than its name. My phone buzzed again. Sarah with the first round of employee board nominations. Names I recognized from analytics, operations, development, good people who'd been held back by the old system. The real work begins now, I told James. Building something that lasts. Your father would be proud, he said, heading for the door. Not of what you destroyed, but of what you're building. After he left, I walked down to the analytics department. My old home. The teams there looked up in surprise as I entered. Mr. Bradford, is everything okay? Everything's fine, I assured them, just remembering where it all started. My old desk was still there, now occupied by a young analyst who reminded me of myself. She was poring over reports, making careful notes. Find anything interesting? I asked. She jumped slightly. Actually, yes. There's a pattern in the Asian market data that. I listened as she explained her findings, seeing the same quiet determination I'd had, the same attention to detail that had brought down an empire of lies. Good work, I told her. Keep watching. Keep learning. You never know where it might lead. Back in my office, I found an email from Victoria. They're planning something. Be careful. A warning. Perhaps she really had chosen a different path. I opened my father's letter again, rereading his words about being the quiet observer, the patient hunter. Thomas might be planning something, but he still didn't understand. He was looking for weak points in the company's structure, not realizing the real strength wasn't in the buildings or accounts. It was in the people who now owned them. My phone buzzed one final time that day. A message from Margaret Wilson. The employee board nominations are complete. We're ready to build something better. I smiled, looking out at the city skyline. The Bradford name still stood atop our building, but soon that would change too. A new name, a new structure, a new legacy. Sometimes the greatest victories come, not from what you gain, but from what you give away. And sometimes the best revenge is simply showing them what real power looks like. 1 year to the day after the initial takeover, I stood in the lobby of what was now officially Bradford Employee Holdings, watching as the old sign was replaced. The morning sun caught the new letters, making them gleam against the Boston skyline. Thomas and my mother had both been convicted last month, 15 and 12 years respectively. Victoria, true to her word, had testified for the prosecution, earning herself immunity and a fresh start in California. My phone buzzed. I messaged from Sarah. Board meeting in 10. They're ready. Today would mark the final transformation. The employee board, led by Margaret Wilson, had spent months preparing for this moment. I took the elevator to the top floor, remembering that day a year ago, when I'd revealed my ownership of the building. The same security guard nodded to me, but now with genuine respect, rather than mere protocol. The boardroom was full. My old 7 employee directors, 3 management representatives, and key department heads. Sarah sat to my right, Daniel to my left. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Good morning, I began. 1 year ago, we started a transformation. Today we complete it. Margaret stood, holding the final proposal. The board has unanimously voted to restructure the company's leadership. Mr. Bradford, we'd like to present our recommendation. I nodded for her to continue. We propose a dual leadership structure. You as executive chairman, focusing on strategic direction, and she smiled. Sarah Chen as CEO, managing daily operations, exactly as I'd hoped they'd choose. Sarah's work over the past year had proven what I'd always known. She was the better operational leader. The floor is yours, Margaret, I said, standing. As of now, Bradford Employee Holdings belongs to its people. The meeting that followed was everything my father would have wanted. Real discussion, real planning, real vision, not family politics or power plays, but genuine business leadership. Afterward, Sarah found me in my office, packing up the last of my father's old things. You planned this all along, didn't you? She asked. The employee ownership, the board, my promotion. I planned to give the company back to the people who truly built it. I corrected. They chose you, as they should have. And what will you do as chairman? I showed her the plans on my desk. Development projects, community initiatives, educational programs. Build something bigger than buildings. My phone buzzed. A message from Victoria. Saw the news. Dad would be proud. Perhaps she was right. The company father had founded was now something greater than even he had envisioned. Not a family empire, but a community of owners, each invested in its success. The final piece arrived that afternoon. A package from James Patterson. Inside was my father's old pocket watch, with a note. He wanted you to have this when the job was done. It's done. I held the watch, feeling its weight. Not just metal and mechanics, but legacy and lesson. The patient hunter, the quiet observer, the one who'd seen what needed to be done, and done it. As the sun set on my last day as CEO, I walked through the building one last time. From analytics to the boardroom. From mailroom to executive suite. Every floor now filled with owner employees. Every decision now made by those most invested in its outcome. In the lobby, the new sign glowed against the darkening sky. Below it, a smaller plaque had been installed. Founded by Alexander Bradford Sr., transformed by Alexander Bradford Jr., owned by its people. My phone buzzed one final time. A group message from the employee board. Thank you for giving us back our company. I smiled, touching my father's watch in my pocket. Some legacies are built on names and titles, others on money and power. But the best legacies are built on trust and transformation, on giving power back to those who earned it, on watching patiently, waiting quietly, and knowing when to step aside. The security guard called out as I left. Good night, Mr. Chairman. Good night, Thomas, I replied. Take care of our company. He smiled, understanding the meaning. We will, sir. We all will. As I walked away, the building stood tall against the night sky, its new sign shining like a beacon, not a monument to family power, but a testament to something far stronger. The power of being underestimated. The power of patient justice. The power of giving back what was taken. And sometimes, that's the greatest power of all. The end.